Oh my God. This is a story about Shirley and Robbie, COVID-19, and lead-based paint. You ready for this one? Okay, here we go. So several months ago, I met Shirley. Shirley is a seller. I met her through a previous client. A lot of business comes in that way. So I met her at the property. Shirley, follow me on this. Shirley is an attorney. She is the trustee for an estate for a property that was in my service area. So I met her. The property still had to be cleaned out, and that took several months. The property was finally ready right as the whole coronavirus thing took off. Okay. So we put it on the market right at the time where everybody is like, I don't know what's going on. And everyone is really staying home. That first month, remember what that felt like? That was really creepy. So we put it on the market. Fortunately, it was vacant, of course, at that point, and we did get some pretty good showing activity. The other player in this transaction is Robbie. Robbie is the, how do I explain this? Robbie's stepson is one of the heirs in this particular estate. Got that? So Robbie was also instrumental. Oh, and by the way, neither one of them lived anywhere in this area. But they did a pretty good job coordinating all this. So we had to get an entire house cleaned out. We had to get the garage cleaned out. We start showing the property. We price it properly for that particular property. And we market it as is because, like most estates, people don't want to do any repairs. Believe it or not, within the first couple of weeks, we get multiple offers. Awesome. We go with an offer that is actually $10,000 over the asking price. In fact, these people wanted the property so badly, they even waived an appraisal contingency, which means if they're paying $10 for the house and the appraiser says it's worth 8, it doesn't matter. Got it? It really has no bearing on it. They still have to come up with the extra cash and still buy it. So it's as is. They do their inspections, which they have a right to, and this as is deal reveals lead-based paint that's peeling. We knew about the peeling part of it. We weren't sure if it was lead-based. We didn't know, but it is or was an older house. Reveals mold in the attic and in the basement, and termite damage and activity. The termite contract expired about a month before. Nobody really knew anything about the mold. I mean, Robbie and Shirley weren't intimately involved in this property historically, so they don't know much about it. So we negotiate a credit for the mold, and I believe a credit for the termite, and everything's moving along. The exterior of the property did have a lot of peeling paint, and that's why we chose not to market it for FHA or VA financing because it was an as-is sale, and FHA or VA financing doesn't really play well together with peeling paint, especially in an as-is situation. So everything's moving along, and then the mortgage company reaches out and says, hey guys, by the way, there's a lot of peeling paint on the outside of that house. And we're like, yeah, we know there is, we know. And they said, well, that has to be fixed before closing. And we're like, oh man, this is not an FHA or a VA loan. And admittedly, the mortgage company said, yeah, the underwriters are getting a little more particular now because of the whole coronavirus thing. They're not sure what the future has in store for us. It may be the apocalypse, so they weren't really sure. So the paint had to be dealt with, and the buyer didn't want to pay for the whole thing. So we get estimates. Full exterior of the house, lead-based paint, so you need a certain type of painter with a certain type of certification. We had estimates on the low end of $11,000 all the way up to over $30,000. And by the way, that had to be done before we could close. So great buyer's agent on the other side of the transaction. We worked really closely in getting all this stuff done. We negotiated kind of like a meet, not quite in the middle, but the seller did agree to pick up part of the cost, because the sellers were pretty reasonable. It's was kind of a business transaction from Shirley's perspective, and everybody tried to be reasonable, and the buyers did as well. So I'm sure that house actually looks really good right now. I didn't have an opportunity to see it after the paint was completed. So the paint had to be completed, and then the appraiser had to go back out, and then we closed. And if you can believe it, we only delayed closing by about 2 weeks. pretty amazing. Everybody was working towards a common goal here. So, all that said, here's what Shirley had to say. Robert was wonderful to work with. He was instrumental in making sure that any bumps in the road to a successful sale were handled quickly, correctly, and cost efficiently. His advice and insights were always well grounded and spot on. This was particularly important to me because I live out of state and couldn't be there to handle things myself. Robert went above and beyond to assure that the sale of the home got done and got done right. I highly recommend Robert and wouldn't hesitate to work with him again. So, COVID, peeling paint, termite, all that fun stuff. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Shirley and Robbie, for the opportunity to help you through this. Would love to do it again.